Hello, and thank you for joining the SENDiass4BCP Steering Group Meeting 2021-22. This is a recording of the meeting that took place earlier. However, it has been edited to remove the case studies as it was felt they were inappropriate for YouTube. If you would like to take part in the steering group in future, please do get in touch. Obviously, our contact details are available on our website, and the link for that is below. There are a few other links included in the description below too. Okay, thank you kindly and enjoy.
Thank you. Okay, so welcome to the report, covering the time frame of 1st of September last year to the 16th of April this year, so covering the autumn term and spring term 2021. We've already done introductions, but I've included the who's who and our current FTE. We have Alexia Tuff joining us on the 5th of July, and she's fixed term for 2 years and is going to be developing the Parent Champion initiative between ourselves and parent carers together. The initiative is to, which I raised previously, is to look at developing volunteers who can be a kind of early support to parent carers, linking with local schools and kind of be a bit of a conduit between schools, parent carers, ourselves, PCT and other organisations around around BCP, signposting parents and making sure that parents are furnished with the information that they need as early as possible, really. So, as I say, Alexia is joining us on the 5th of July, and Jonathan and Tracy are now our SENDiass advisors. We went through a recruitment process. SENDiass advisors had been part of our structure pre-LGR when we knew we were coming together as one service across BCP. Due to restructures and freezes on recruitment, etc., we've only just got to the point where we could look at recruiting and advertising for that post. Tracy and Jonathan had both worked within the service previously, but we did go to internal advert, had quite a strong field, to be honest, but Tracy and Jonathan were successful. So their role is primarily covering the advice line, which we now have up and running on a weekly basis, Monday to Thursday, but also having some additional responsibilities as part of their role as advisors. So a really exciting development, and congratulations to Tracy and Jonathan again for achieving the SENDiass advisor roles. I thought it'd be really helpful just to kind of give an overview of the other areas of responsibility that each of the officers carry out as part of their role. So they're not just case holding and case supporting. Kirsty has responsibility to support parent carers experiencing more complex circumstances around their child or young person with respect to education, health and all social care matters. As she said earlier, she facilitates the peer supervision that is held on a weekly basis. And is also co-producing professional workshops in conjunction with parent carers together, and also deputises for myself at times when there are meetings, strategic meetings that I can't get to. Sharon Foster and Claire Murphy have been co-producing, designing and delivering parent carer workshops. As part of that, when we went over to being virtual and not being able to roll them out in a face-to-face way, they've designed some webinars which are up on our website and YouTube pages. And again, they are going to continue rolling out these training in a virtual way, and hopefully we'll get back to some face-to-face training and workshops for parent carers as well. Jill has been busily developing our core offer to children and young people and working in conjunction with BCP Council, facilitating the participation of young people in a recent project which she'll come on to as part of her report in a little while. Kate has been supporting Jill in the development work with children and young people, and she's also been supporting the kind of marketing of SENDiass, working with FIS, making sure that our information is up to date and relevant, and making sure that people know who we are and how to get in touch with us. Bex, with her previous experience around visual impairment and supporting families whose child has or young person has a visual impairment, has been looking at the accessibility of our resources and making sure that we're using the right font. She's kind of been a bit of a consultant in terms of advising the team what size font we should be using and colours we should be using and that kind of thing. So been really useful that Bex has come on board and joined us in November to make sure we're as accessible as we possibly can be. But again, it's a bit of an ongoing ongoing, never-ending task, really. We've got an awful lot of resources on the website at the moment, so she's getting there, so that's great. John, I can only describe him as our social media guru. He is responsible for our Facebook page and our Twitter feed, and also for the website as well. He also does the modifications on our database, our cloud database, cross data, and liaises with our supplier. He also manages the invoicing through Oracle and is going to work with Jill supporting the development with children and young people. We've got a project which I'll come on to later through our ISP grant funding, and he's going to be supporting that. As an aside, John also is a bit of an IT guru as well, so if anybody has a problem with IT, they tend to go to John. So thank you, John, for all of those hats you wear. It's great. Tracy Bartlett is responsible for coordinating the SENDiass4BCP newsletter, which is something that I guess over the last year has been relatively new. So Tracy's been working with each of us to make sure we get our contributions in on time, putting it together, making it look really good and getting it out to everyone. She's also going to be supporting the coordination of the parent carer professional workshops and the work of the Parent Champion Initiative, working alongside Alexia. So as you can see, everybody has a whole range of different hats that they wear, as well as supporting children, young people and their families in casework as well. Has anybody got any questions around that, or shall I move on? I'll keep going. Okay, so as Kirsty raised, our current operational position is that we're all remaining as home-based. Both of our previous office spaces have been recommissioned, and we are in discussions continuing regarding our need for identified office space. As Kirsty alluded to, it's quite tricky with our arm's length remit. We can't be co-located with other children's services, with the SEND team, with adult social care. So it has presented a little bit of a conundrum, really. We are quite unique in what we require. However, those discussions have been ongoing and are ongoing. So hopefully something will be identified. I think not only in terms of responding to parent carer, young people's needs, in terms of having space where we can meet face to face outside of those clinic-based opportunities, but also for us as a service. It has been quite challenging at times over the last year in terms of that isolation of working away from peers, having that opportunity to kind of bounce off each other, having those opportunities to have discussions, and particularly I think for, Bex joined us in November, and for a new person joining us, you miss out on those kind of peer-to-peer conversations that happen, at the drop of a hat, really. We became, just moving on to the requirement for us to be jointly commissioned, we became jointly commissioned with the CCG on the 1st of April as of this year. We still need to secure a three-way agreement, which includes social care, and we need to ensure some further discussions continue around that and how we may be able to move that agenda forward. There are certainly some SENDiass around the country that have a tripartite agreement, but again, I think around the country it's something that has been quite tricky to get going and get agreed. So, but again, I think that discussion certainly needs to continue to ensure that we are compliant with the Children and Families Act. Again, I'm not going to go over too much of this because Kirsty's also mentioned it. But as the COVID roadmap progresses and restrictions further ease, we plan to change our operational delivery, ensure that we can offer some face-to-face opportunities for meeting with parent carers and young people. As I said earlier, we want to relaunch our workshops for parent carers and professionals, and hopefully have some venues across BCP as well as virtually. Continue to provide face-to-face information and advice to young people in environments where they feel comfortable, i.e. at home, at youth club, out in the community. And certainly Jill has been, both in terms of lockdown last year when it eased over the summer holidays, and more recently through risk assessment and ensuring that we're compliant with guidance, has been able to offer that to young people, which is really positive. Where there is a need to be able to support parent carers and young people in person at meetings again, And as part of our information, advice and support programme, we want to bring together a small group of young people to represent the views of young people across BCP. So as well as supporting the IASP, we want them to be involved in this steering group, for their views to be part of this steering group, and to enable them to share their views with regarding other agendas across BCP Council and the CCG. And we really want to ensure that young people experience participation and co-production that values their views and creates changes and developments, that it's not just piecemeal, that actually they are an intrinsic part of what we do and how we do it.
Victoria, how will you recruit the young people to be on that group? What is your strategy for recruitment to ensure that reflects the diversity of BCP and the needs of the children that they will be, supporting or talking to?
What I'm going to do, Jackie, is not steal Jill's thunder.
Oh, sorry.
Jill's going to do an update report halfway through this report. So I'll let her comment on that, if that's okay.
Thank you. That's fine.
Brilliant. Thank you. So moving on to data. So I am going to present data for that time period to show you the changes that have happened between academic year 2019-2020 and this academic year. I'm going to demonstrate the overall number of contacts that we've had over both years, the total number of referrals, including by type, the referrals by intervention level, which will demonstrate the complexity and longevity of the support we are involved in, and referrals by age of child or young person. I'm also going to reference the first lockdown to demonstrate the impact of that extended first lockdown in terms of the support that was requested during that time. And I'm also going to capture the current position with respect to tribunal support, but that's going to be snapshot data from this year compared with June 2020 and 2019 respectively. The reason I've included that is that you'll see when I present the data that there's been a significant increase really in that support being requested, but I'll come on to that in a bit. Okay, so during this academic year, we've seen a 24% increase in the number of contacts that have come through to the service and a 21% increase in the total number of work hours. Now, some of that can be attributed to the fact that we've actually got more staff now, so you would expect there to be more contacts in and out. However, I think probably the impact is most significant around the lockdown that occurred during March to July last year. And you'll see later on there was a significant drop in the request for support during that time frame. So I think if last year had been a ordinary year without coronavirus and without COVID impacting on all of our lives, I think that information would have been slightly different. I don't think we would have seen a massive difference in terms of contacts. Obviously that's speculative, but I do know that contacts did drop massively from March onwards, and that will be demonstrated shortly in another graph. So total number of referrals, we've seen, as you can see there, an increase in the number of referrals, a decrease rather in the number of referrals that have come through to us over the last academic year. There's been a drop of 36% regarding general information and advice, and general information and advice tends to be requests around SEN for support around SEN support in school, supporting parents in having meetings with school, looking at the graduated response with schools, ensuring that support is in place, where parents have got concerns around progress. So it's no wonder that has dropped given the impact of COVID and schools being closed. Similarly, exclusions, requests for support around exclusion dropped by 65%. However, interestingly, more recently, we've had a bit of a spike in terms of both permanent exclusion and fixed term exclusions for children and young people who've returned to school as from the 8th of March. So it'll be interesting to see what the data looks like when we come back in November to look at whether that again has crept up again. Support around EHC processes has increased by 23% over this academic year, and appeal and tribunal support has increased by 57%. So we've got quite a significant increase, although it doesn't show very dramatically on the graph. When you look at the figures, we've seen a significant increase in the number of appeal and tribunals we're being asked to support at. Okay, any questions around that data? Okay. So in terms of intervention levels, what changed as of January of this year is that we introduced a call log. So Jonathan and Tracy have been supporting the advice line, but also the incoming emails initially requesting support. And what we decided to do was anything that required half an hour's support or less over the phone or via email went onto the call log. So we weren't logging them on our database as a referral because they weren't going forward for allocation or further work with a SENDiass officer. So that's why there's a disparity there. So John and Tracy have dealt with 392 inquiries since January that have basically needed less or needed level 1 information and advice, but haven't needed to go forward for further support. When they're combined with existing level 1s that went onto the database, you can see that we've had a 26% increase in the requests for level 1 information and advice. Level 2 has gone up by 12.5%, level 3 by 45%, and level 4 by 71%. So what that demonstrates is the complexity and longevity of work is increasing, albeit not massively, but it is increasing. And I think that shows the kind of push points that we're getting in the service at the moment, which I'll come on to in a minute. So what used to happen was we would get quite a reasonable flow of support ending with new support coming in. That isn't happening in the same way as it used to. We've had periods where that's been the case. However, from February, March time, that seems to be the case, that cases are remaining open over a longer period of time and requiring more intensive and lengthy support to enable outcomes to be achieved, really.
And Victoria,
Sorry,
do we track that period of time that those cases are open as well?
Yeah, we do. Okay. So looking at age range, as you can see, again, significant difference in the number of referral or young people in our system, as it were. I don't really like referring it to that, but young people who are receiving, children, families, and young people who are receiving support. The 0 to 4 range has remained pretty stable in terms of support we're offering. Similarly, the 5 to 10 and 11 to 15 over those 2 academic years, which is quite interesting, really. Where we've seen significant increase is in the 16 to 18 range, which I think is as a result of us having Jill as a permanent member of staff, having Jill as a very skilled member of staff who can engage children and young people, and by the work she's done in terms of promoting the support that she can offer, her role within the service, and ensuring that there's awareness of her within the work that she does. So that's really positive. Not a massive increase, but significant, I think. And again, 19 to 25-year-olds has remained pretty stable as well in terms of support being requested. I would say that those, in terms of that 16 to 25-year-old age range, where we've seen a shift as well is that those young people are receiving support in their own right. Whereas previously, before we had Jill, they might receive a little bit of support alongside their parent carer, but certainly what Jill's been able to do and take forward is meeting with those young people where they want to without their parent carer, and ensuring that they're able to share their views in an independent way. What we try to do is allocate a SENDiass officer to the parent carer to ensure that their voice is heard, and then Jill does the independent work with the young person as well, which is really positive.
I think one of the slides that you showed earlier, Victoria, showed that of the referrals you were getting in, one of them was inquiries relating to transitions. So I would expect that 16 to 25 marries.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, is that number what you would expect? Sorry to just jump in. Are those numbers around what you would expect for that kind of age range? I'm interested particularly because we know that there's in about 2-3 years' time.
Oh,
I've lost you, Lewis.
Lewis, you've frozen. I think what she's saying is that we're expecting a bottle. There's a
Yeah.
larger cohort coming through, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jill's been in post since January 20, and she's done she'll come on to the work that she's been doing in a while, and I think there is room for more young people to be coming through for asking for support in their own right, and I think part of that is about us making sure that those, which Jill has done an enormous work around, making sure that those existing organisations that are supporting those young people know that they can refer in and can receive that support in their own right, and that they can self-refer or, you know, refer alongside their parent carer. Jill will come on to the independent, the work she's been offering to children and young people in their own right in her report. But I think there is room to increase that, and I'd like to see that is increasing. Having said that, I can't remember where I think it might be in some other data I was doing. I think it's in my operational plan, and I'll come back to it later when I share it. It's around, I think it's a 42% increase in the number of young people who are accessing us over this academic year. So I'll come back to that when I go on to my operational plan rather. Okay, so this graph and data demonstrates the impact of COVID and the restrictions on requests for support. What's interesting about this is from 2019, I can only capture data from April when we came together as a service as a whole across BCP, and obviously for this year I can only go up to, I've included data up to May. But as you can see, for 2020, the significant drop that occurred during March, April, May, June, and then started to come up again and then dropped off again, which we often get in the summer holidays in preparation for the new term. But that period of time, when you look at it comparing 2019 and indeed this year, even though we're still in the midst of a pandemic, COVID had a massive impact on requests for support during that time, and yeah, dropped down to, where are we, 18 referrals in April. Currently, we sometimes get 18 referrals over a 2-week period. So, and sometimes we've had 13 in a week. So you can see where that massive drop happened. When you look at referrals in January 2020 were 156, which probably, to be fair, included some of those level ones which are now captured by our call log. However, you can see that was a really significant and dramatic drop over that time frame. So yeah, so I just felt I should include that because it really shows the impact. Any questions? Sorry, John.
Just saying, Lois is in hand.
Sorry, everyone. Yeah,
we lost you.
As I started speaking, obviously, technology decided it didn't want to hear from me. Apologies. I just sort of wanted to just sort of clarify my question. Really, it was not so much around questioning any of the data, because that probably does represent a fairly accurate reflection. I just wondered if, Victoria, you thought there was anything in terms of that, where we know that the forecast numbers for that 19 to 25 age group are going in the next 2 to 3 years, certainly going through the roof. And from our perspective, how we're planning our provision in post 16 and how we work with the local authority to manage that demand, is there anything that we can be doing proactively to prepare for that? Because what I wouldn't want is, you know, if you've got a model, a business model that runs on the basis that those are fairly reflective numbers, if that suddenly goes through the roof, you start to see much more engagement, which is fantastic, by the way, with young people self-referring or being able to advocate for themselves, which is obviously what we want. I would just think that we probably need to think about planning for that in the next couple of years, because certainly we're trying to do that work now so that we're prepared for it.
Yeah.
Just be interested to see what other people think.
I think from my perspective, whilst those numbers have stayed fairly static, I think there's room. There's definitely room for us to be supporting more young people. And I suppose the tricky thing for me, and you're quite right, is if our data looks like that, but I'm trying to argue for more capacity within the service to meet the impending need, as it were. At the moment, my data doesn't support that. So I think what we need to be ensuring, and certainly it's a large part of the work that Jill has been doing, is getting out there and meeting with providers and meeting with different organisations who are already supporting young people to make sure that young people are aware of us, so that the number of young people that we're supporting increases, because there's vastly more young people out there that could benefit from our support. But I think as well, it's about those people who are already supporting young people, making sure that they have the conversations with them around preparation for annual review, when we're looking at transition from post-16 into post-16, that schools are having those conversations with young people to make sure that they know we're here. So and Jill works 22 hours. So in terms of her capacity to do everything that she's doing, it is tricky. Hence, Kate and Jonathan are offering some support. But I think we're reliant on our colleagues and partners making sure that young people are aware of us and how we can support them.
And Jill can link with our new transition worker who will be working with Lindsay Sloan. And then we're also going to have a designated worker for children not in employment, education and training. So I think what you're saying is right, that we need to make sure that we're working in partnership.
Yeah, absolutely.
To address the demand.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so Lois, I did move on to the impact of COVID when your technology was giving you grief.
I've seen that. That's great.
Okay, brilliant. Okie dokes.
Is there any way, Victoria, that we could have, or would it be useful? I don't know, if we could have sort of an anonymised some examples of, or even just by level, in terms of that 16 to 25 age group, the referrals that you have had, without looking at every detail, and certainly it can be anonymised, but just to give us an idea of the type of things that are coming through, because that might also help us to be more proactive to manage that. If we see that there's a real issue with requests around transition or support for EHC needs assessments at a later age, that might be something that we can then be, if we're aware of that, then you've got this really valuable information that might help us to develop our service as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Jill's going to, at the end of this data, Jill's going to do her report. So hopefully she will give you a flavour of what she's been doing, the young people she's been supporting, and she's going to do a case study as well around the type of work, and she'll be able to answer some questions directly around that as well. So, which will be really helpful, like you say, just to kind of pin down the types of support that young people are requesting. Just moving on as well, as I said earlier, in terms of the push points within the service, as you can see from this data, again, we had back in 2020, we had significantly more cases remaining open at the end of every month. Again, that's starting to creep up, but I think whilst it's not at the same level as 2019, 2020, the push point is coming because we are dealing with a higher number of tribunals, the more complex cases, hence they're remaining open. So there are a number of capacity issues within the service at the moment. We've had to increase our KPI around returning calls to 5 days at the moment, just to manage the new cases coming in, the new requests for support coming in, plus the existing cases that are remaining open and the complexity around those. So as I say, whilst it's not at the same level as 2019, 2020, the team would certainly say that they're feeling it currently in terms of everything that's kind of going on, really. And I think the other aspect to it is that, as Kate alluded to earlier after her case study, in terms of parent carer support needs as well, we're seeing an increase in the level of support that parent carers need, and I think as a consequence of everything that's happened over the last 18 months, I really don't think it's any wonder that people are feeling as they do and needing a higher level of support, which is great, and people are coming to us and receiving the support that they need. Okay.
Lewis,
hello.
Sorry, me again.
That's right.
What's your criteria for closing a case? Is there something, because I appreciate exactly, and I agree with what you say, that it's absolutely understandable that they would stay open longer on the basis of the year that everyone's been through. I just wonder, is there a point at which a parent would say, I still want this case to be open, but you actually have criteria as a service where you say, we are now going to close that? How does that work?
So in many ways, a lot of the work we do around tribunal, around EHC processes are quite boundaried in terms of time, because it's a legal process. So those cases are often the ones that naturally come to an end because the process has finished. The ones that are more tricky are those ones around SEN support. And whilst I suppose what we found as well in terms of tribunals is that the time frame for a tribunal has increased. It used to be 3 months to hearing. However, we're looking at 5 months now because of the pressures within the tribunal service and everything that's happened. So naturally, cases are staying open longer because of delays within processes and in terms of EHCPs as well, although the local authority are working really hard on reducing those delays within that process. So we ask parents at the start of the process of coming to us what outcome they want to achieve. So that's one of our first questions to them. What are they hoping to achieve out of the support that we're offering them? And quite often, again, even within SEN support, general IAS, that process comes to a natural end. So parents will come to us where they've got concerns about their child in school. We'll support them at meetings with the school. If that then resolves and school are much more, parents feeling that school are much more on board, school have developed their relationship with parents are feeling much happier about their relationship with school, again, that will naturally come to an end. We have got a closure process whereby we keep things open for a couple of weeks. We will then touch base with the parent carer to say, how are you? Is everything resolved? And if everything is resolved or they don't come back to us, then we will close after a couple of weeks of no contact, as it were, really. So we have got a process around that. What used to happen within the services 2 or 3 years ago, cases just used to remain open for 3 months, and I felt that was too long. They're inactive. You're not actually physically doing anything, and we need to see throughput. We need to see that we're reaching outcomes with families and with children and young people. So that process was put in place probably about 18 months, 2 years ago. So yeah, we have.
No, that's really helpful. That's helpful. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so just a snapshot, as I said, comparative data from June of this year, comparing June of 2020-2019, just to demonstrate the number of appeals that we currently have open. Compared to last year, we have a significantly less refusal to assess appeals that are going forward to hearing. And I think that is a really positive effect, and I think the team would certainly reflect this if you were to ask them of the Early Disagreement Resolution Officer, both Charlotte, who was previously in post, and Sarah Dendell, who's currently in post. There have been some really healthy discussions and support offered, and I think getting to early resolution has been really helpful for those families and ensured that, and I think even where the decision hasn't gone in favour of the parent carer during that early disagreement resolution, they've really felt listened to, and I think that's really positive to step forward from the local authority's perspective to have that early disagreement resolution officer in post. We've had a significant increase in the number of refusal to issue appeals going forward. To be honest, 2 or 3 years ago, we very rarely had a refusal to issue appeal. However, we've currently got 6 that we're managing and supporting. Content alone, again, over the preceding couple of years, they're often very low. Placement is another significant increase with 6, and content and placement combined is 9. So as you can see with that data, there's a significant increase in the number of appeals that we're currently managing and supporting.
The content and placement and the placement stat, does that then tell us that there's more placement disputes? I'm just trying to understand those 2 figures. Yeah.
There's I mean, and I'm sure Jackie would comment on this. There's a significant issue where parents are requesting specialist placement and there aren't specialist placements available, or indeed we've had a couple where, and I might be, no, I'm not going to say that. Yeah, where there's a real blockage in terms of specialist placements, local specialist placements being available. Would you agree with that, Jackie?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there are not enough specialist placements available, and obviously, you know, the number of children. Yeah, and we're working. Yeah, we've got a strategy, you know, to work towards ensuring that we have the right designated places in the borough, you know, for children to access their education.
But in terms of complexity, placement and content, well, the refusal to issue is quite a complex appeal as well in terms of evidence and so on and so forth, but certainly placement, content and placement are the more intensive support that parent carers need, really. Having said that, I think parent carers have welcomed the virtual hearing opportunities that have come out of COVID and have felt afterwards that it's been less stressful than having to travel to a court and be there in person. So whilst it is a very stressful process for parent carers, they've felt very positively around the virtual experience, which is positive. We feed into a Southwest and National Tribunal and Appeals Mediation working group. So this feedback goes into that as well, so that it's shared on a national basis as well. So, okay. So just to summarise everything that I've just shared with you, overall data shows that referrals into the service haven't significantly increased during COVID. However, tribunals' appeals have increased generally over time, including a higher number of the more complex appeals that I've just alluded to. Alongside this, as I previously said, the longevity of complex cases is evidenced by the increasing number of cases remaining month on month since January 2021. And both of these factors have created push points within the service capacity, including responding to new referrals. And as I said, we're up to 5 working days at the moment to respond to both existing parent carers coming through to us asking for support and new referrals coming in. Having said that, Tracy and Jonathan are very good at getting back to parents to offer that kind of initial information and advice. And if it then needs to come through to allocations, we have got a 5 working day turnaround for an officer to become involved. So yeah, hopefully at some point that will go back to 2 working days. But for the foreseeable, it's going to be 5 working days. Okay, so that brings to a close the first part of the report. I'm going to close mine and hand over to Jill, who's going to give an update from a children and young persons development perspective.
Hi, yeah, I've done a PowerPoint, but just bear with me. So I'm just going to try and get it up now. Okay.
Just while that's loading, I'll just let you know we're about halfway through, about an hour or so to go.
Sorry, the internet's a little bit slow this morning, so hopefully. Yeah, we're okay. We're okay. Yeah. Okay. So mine's not as posh as Victoria's, but it's just, I thought it's sometimes easier to have a little look through. So since I last sort of did the report back in November, these are some things I've been doing. Obviously, continue to support young people. We've had a logo competition. I've been speaking with and engaging with Bournemouth and Poole College. Supported the SEND consultation process, and also I'm part of the Southwest Information and Advice Support Service Children and Young People's Working Group. So I'll go on to those things. So yeah, I've supported probably approximately 40 young people, probably more than that. That's on a one-to-one basis. This has been gathering their views for school meetings, education and healthcare, needs assessments, annual reviews. I could do this, we sometimes do this on the phone. It has had to be quite a lot, but more recently we can go back to meeting with young people, which for some of them they find far better. I've had one young person that I've supported through the mediation process, and generally just looking at post-16 provisions, volunteering opportunities and other activities, because for some of these young people, particularly the 16 pluses, they're really perhaps just at home and not actually doing anything. So it's trying to find something to start them to get back into some sort of activity and education. So next thing that we've done is a logo competition to get a new logo for the SENDiass service, which we've been trying to do probably for the last year, but we've managed to. We were hoping to do it by visiting the schools and the youth clubs originally, but obviously that's not happened. So yeah, we've got 25 entries we were given, so I've got some copy, and these were all judged by the peer mentors of the Chatterbox group. So I'm just going to go through the entries so you can see from different, we advertised different places, the schools, sent it out to colleges, training providers. It was advertised on social media. So we were really pleased. This has only been in the last sort of couple of months, so we were pleased with the actual response that we received. As you can see, they're very different and come from different age range. As I say, the Chatterbox group took 2.5 evenings to sort of judge these. They took it really they were really sensible, considerate, and very enthusiastic that we actually would have a logo that reflected our service. So after the 2 evenings of looking through all of them, judging them, scoring them, and going back several times, this was our winning entry. But they did want a couple of alterations made, so they wanted words to explain what SEND stood for as well. So the design we've now got, which has gone to AIM Community, and they're going to make it print friendly for us so that we can now use it on all our literature website and Facebook and Instagram accounts. Okay, the other thing that I've been working with, some of you might be aware, was the SEND consultation. So Becky McDade was asked to sort of support young people in looking at do some co-production, and asked me to join alongside her. So we were meeting on a regular basis, but we only had quite a small time frame in which to do this. So we initially spoke together, jointly worked out the different places that we could write to asking for support, and also did, as you can see here, a Zoom meeting online, which again was advertised through SEND. So it was really looking at the co-production to look at our charter, the SEND charter, and see what young people think about it. And then we were going to share the views with the SEND improvement boards. So these are the ones that, as you can see, the next screen, these are the different places that actually did engage. I went into the SEND group for Bournemouth. Unfortunately, I couldn't make all the others, but we did also offer it out to other, like the college, Swarak, AIM, Summerford Youth Club, mainstream schools. Unfortunately, it was to do with the time framing, because it was quite short, that we didn't have more young people, but at least we had some young people. As you can see, these are the thoughts. So we went into the groups, we showed them the charter, we got them to do a small workshop on drawing a picture, and these are some of the thoughts that they came back on everything. I mean, I can read them, or yeah, definitely. Yeah, Lois, I know. So yeah, as I say, we looked at the charter, did a small workshop, and these are sort of the things that they said it was okay. when we were doing the workshop, everyone was taking turns. And so trying to get them to understand this, what co-production actually sort of looks like. We then did a Saturday morning workshop, which we had a few young people came along to. We offered it out to all of the ones that had done the previous workshops. We were hoping that it would be a face-to-face. We tried to do it face-to-face and a part online, but actually it all ended up online because that was the best for the group that wanted to get involved. We came up with what was their priorities from the other workshops. They had certain areas that they felt they would like to work with the local authority on, and these were some of the ideas that they came up with, that the support that they wanted. They also then shared this with the local SEND improvement board on the afternoon. So they came along and the young people shared with them what we'd been doing. And I think maybe, I don't know, some of you were there. I don't know. I think Chloe came, didn't she? I can't remember.
Yes, I did. It was really good.
Yeah. And there is a link to it, so I can send a link probably out if people wanted. One of the main things that young people wanted was at the moment was the beach facilities. Young people accessing the beach with disabilities, wheelchairs, they can't get on the beaches. So that's something that the local authority or SEND improvement we're definitely going to be looking at, and changing facilities was the other one that we were highlighted at that time. So we're hoping that, you know, going forward, there's a couple of these young people that might be also interested in working with SENDiass to help us move our service forward. So, as I say, when somebody was asking about recruitment, some of the young people are quite keen to come and work with us going forward.
Just to let you know, Jill, Jackie Lever has also said that young mental health ambassadors really make a difference. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Some of the other work I've been doing with the South West Information Advice Support Service, we have a regular meeting and have since I've joined it about a year ago. So we were meeting about 3 times a year, but we're finding that we were just getting together, talking, and then we'd have another meeting and nothing happens. So this year we decided to have some working groups. One of the things that was coming up with all of us was social media, websites. So we split into groups. I joined the website group where we looked at each other's websites. We were tasked to look at another 2 websites within the Southwest region and to give constructive feedback. It's also about how we are all, I mean, we're lucky. I'm you know, I am a children and young persons worker. Some of the groups don't have that. So it's actually how we can pull together to maybe do certain, not projects, but certain pieces of work, whether we can do it jointly rather than us all doing it individually, because we just don't always have the time. So that was one of the things. And Instagram was the other group looking about comparing the different charities, the number of followers in the posts, and actually they came up with actually to run Instagram, you need to put an awful lot of posts up to get the followers, and that's quite time consuming. So most of them were going to spend more time on concentrating on the actual website. Okay, this is as I say, this is just the different areas that were involved, and these are the sort of different questions that we were asked to look at each other's documents. And it's good because at least it helps us. It was only around the children and young person section, not on the whole of the website, but it gave us an insight. And previously I've gone into chatter boxes and they've given us some feedback, so it's a good starting point for us to move forward on looking what we do need to make it more acceptable for everybody to use. I've also done some questionnaires with chatterboxes, and I've put it in at the local college earlier in the year, just trying to find out who knows about SENDiass, have they used our service, if they've used it, would they recommend it, and whether they currently have an EHCP, also giving out all our different social medias and what the best way, you know, is to keep in touch with them. And alongside this was, again, if anybody would be interested in coming or joining us or working on any projects. So that went out. Unfortunately, the college, nobody really came back. Chatterboxes we've had some feedback from, so again that just helps us to start to build a picture of the young people and whether they know about us and what we can do to sort of support moving forward. So yeah, as I say, we've really continued, as I say, that some of the work that I've done, I've continued to sort of build relationships with training providers, the job centre, the college, youth provision. So even though we haven't been able to go into youth clubs, I've kept in contact with them and hoping that we can go back into them once they're open, so that we can perhaps recruit some other young people that maybe a mainstream school, or maybe just, you know, don't normally engage in other sort of projects, but maybe just go to their local youth centre. When I work with young people, I also sort of suggest, you know, that we are going to do projects and whether they be happy or whether they be interested. And I think often the young people that we're working with at the moment, they're in sort of almost a crisis when they've come, particularly sort of post-16s. So they're not necessarily ready, but I think perhaps moving forward in another few months' time, they might be. So going forward, I'm going to continue with the South West Children's Young Working Youth Party. We're now looking at how we can engage with young people coming to us directly. That's our next sort of piece of work. And some of the others are looking at sort of running some workshops in schools. I've got the college open event, maybe not, and then, as I said, and looking at doing the drop-in sessions, hopefully speaking with Brian, and looking at doing something like that going from September, maybe once a term, and possibly doing that in person. So if there's other young people there that want to just come and speak to us or find out more, then that would, you know, we're there for them. I'm looking at developing the website, the SENDiass website, so that will again be going back into trying to get information from young people on what they feel we need on the website, what's important to them, whether there's different age ranges, which is what previously has come up with young people, that we need to split it into separate groups because they've all got their different needs. So somebody at 11 will have very different needs to somebody at 19. And we've also got some funding to work with Baines on an animation project. So that's another thing that's coming up, and at the same time I'm trying to collect stories from young people about their SEND and SENDiass help or support that they've had, to hopefully gather their views so that we've got something to share, to see where there has been problems and where we as a service, as a whole service, BCP, can improve things for them, really. And that's it. I shall be quiet now. Or if there's any questions. Okay.
I was just going to say, Jill, the open event will go ahead. It's just going to have a slightly different format.
Okay, I'll speak to you later about that. Yeah,
we'll talk about it afterwards. But yeah, we won't let the opportunity pass us by. I promise.
Good. I've gone and collected the board and everything, so it's still in my car. Okay, thank you.
And just to let you know as well, Nikki has just put in the chat about the open evening. PCT have a stand at both sites as well there, so letting you know that they'll be located to the SENDiass stand possibly.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so if Jill stops screen sharing, I'll go back into mine. Okay. The next bit I was going to touch on before I go into the information advice and support programme was just around what parent carers are telling us about SENDiass4BCP. I was going to talk about our future operational plan, but both Kirsty and I have touched on that previously, so I'm not going to touch on that again. However, just some comments from parents around the way things have worked for them over the last 18 months with us working remotely. one parent commented, the home-based services work very well for us. I didn't actually realise it was home-based. We have no need of a meeting. We have had no need of a meeting, but a Zoom or Teams meeting would have been sufficient. Without offices and meeting rooms, funding may stretch a little further, allowing more families to be helped like us. Another parent suggested that they'd like their initial contact via Zoom or virtual meeting rather than a telephone call or an email. And another parent asked for the telephone number to be usable again. We've re-established our advice line, so hopefully parents now have an alternative route into getting in touch with us, because I was acutely aware over the last 18 months with us or not, it wasn't 18 months, it was about 10 months, only having email as the route in for some parents, that was a barrier really. So as from January, we now have our advice line up and running. Having said that, Jonathan and Tracy will probably come on this, it's not as widely used as we thought it might be. So I think there's probably some promotional work that we need to do to make sure that it's out there and people know they can contact us by telephone, not just email. Having said that, the email inbox is exceedingly busy, isn't it? So yeah. Okay, so just in terms of satisfaction and outcome related feedback, the feedback, we've set up a link within our emails for feedback, and since the 24th of July last year, 99 parents have responded. For the time frame of this report, we've received 26 responses regarding the experience of the information and advice support that people have received. And we ask a range of questions. Some are around satisfaction, some are around outcome for themselves as parent carer, but also for their child or young person. So in terms of our impartiality, those who responded rated, 74% of them rated us as extremely or very. 17% felt we were neither neutral or unneutral, fair or unfair, biased or unbiased, and 9% felt that we weren't very neutral, fair and unbiased. What I'd like to be able to do is unpick that with people, because it's an anonymised feedback opportunity. I can't do that. So I think we need to think about it in terms of how people can offer up their contact details so that I could discuss it with them further, because I'd really like to understand that 9% of why they felt we weren't very neutral, fair or unbiased. I really want to try and unpick that and see. In terms of 26, it's a very small number. It's probably only 1 or 2, but I want to still understand it from those parent carers' perspective. So we need to think about how we capture that and ensure that we can explore it in a bit more detail. Ease of access, 56% rated this as easy or very easy to get in touch with, 12% very difficult or difficult. And again, I'd like to unpick that. I suspect some of it is possibly around, as I alluded to just a minute ago, around only having email. Perhaps our new contact details aren't out there as openly as they could be, or in enough places as previously. And I think, again, I'd like to be able to unpick that with people. And that's the downside of having anonymised feedback. It's very difficult to kind of think about your service and how you can change things if you can't actually discuss it with the people who feel that things haven't been as good as they could have been. 71% felt that the information, advice and support they received was helpful or very helpful, and 9% felt not very or unhelpful. Certainly in the past, when we've done an annual consultation with people who've used the service, that has come about because they had hoped for something. So, for example, an outcome might be at the start of our involvement that they want an EHCP for their child. However, that hasn't come to fruition for whatever reason, and therefore they felt that our IIS hasn't been very helpful to them, or indeed it's been around supporting them with the school, and school haven't made the changes that they hoped they would do. So I think, again, I need to unpick it. I need to understand what people's views are and why they may be feeling that. Really positively, 75% felt that we'd made a great deal of difference to them and their young person, but again, 21% felt that there was none or little difference made. And overall satisfaction with the service, 79% were extremely or very satisfied, 20% not very or dissatisfied, and 8% neither dissatisfied or dissatisfied. So, as I said, I think we need to think about those questions and look at how we might be able to unpick it in a little bit more detail about why people may be feeling as they do. In terms of outcomes, 77% felt that their child or young person's needs were better understood. 65% felt they had a better relationship with the education provider. 70% felt they were more involved in educational decisions. 79% felt more confident. 74% felt happier or less worried. 83% felt that they benefited from SENDiass involvement, and 83% felt they had a greater understanding of the rights for children and young people with SEND. So overall, I think quite a positive kind of outcome based response, really, and certainly what we hope to capture going forward to November. As I said, we are asking parent carers, young people at the point of initial contact, what outcome they're hoping to achieve. So hopefully we'll have some more benchmarks around outcome related feedback and outcomes for children and young people in November. I say we, it'll be over to Kirsty. Okay, so just to update you all on the information, advice and support programme. For those of you who perhaps haven't been to previous meetings, we've been part of the information, advice and support programme with the National Children's Bureau and Council for Disabled Children, who are the delivery partners with the DFE. Since 2019, I think, or 18-19, just before LGR. So for this, for the previous academic year, some slightly complicate matters. The programme contract runs for the financial year. So our contract this year ended on the 31st of March, prior to which I needed to produce a final report. I'd done 2 previous update reports during that year. We also had to include a sustainability plan for 2021-22. I've put a link in there so that when the PowerPoint comes out, if you want to have a read, have a look at it, you can do. It was actually published on the Council for Disabled Children website as an exemplar for good practice, which was really pleasing. And it kind of gives an overview of where we'd come from, where we were up to in terms of sustainability and capacity within the service, and gives a really good overview in terms of our forward-going plan. So if you want to have a look at it, please do. There were significant challenges, as you can imagine, in meeting the KPIs for 2020-21 because the contract was agreed prior to COVID. So in terms of bidding for the contract, that all happened in the early part of 2020 before COVID was on the radar, really. And it meant that much of the work was delayed because of our inability to meet face to face, our inability to plan together, our inability to, and I think it's fair to say for everybody in the early part of the pandemic, things were in a little bit of chaos in terms of how we were going to work together moving forward virtually, etc., etc. However, within the report, I was able to demonstrate substantial progress and the mitigating factors, and thankfully Martin Ball, who's the ISP manager, was satisfied that enough progress had been made, and whilst there were delays, we were able to secure full grant funding for 2020-21 and didn't receive a deduction, which was really good and really positive. On the back of that, a number of areas which were delayed have been carried forward to our development plan for this year. Okay, oh, wrong way. So for this year, we've entered into a joint project with Bath and North East Somerset, with which Jill mentioned earlier. They have a SEND partnership service, which is basically their SEND information, advice and support service, and we've received a joint funding agreement through ISP. Due to the recognition of the uniqueness of our initiative and our plan to work together, they've awarded us an additional £6,500 for the project. So our planned outcome is to have co-produced with young people from BCP and BAME several animated information and advice films based on the requirements of young people in both areas. So it's really exciting. It's a really good opportunity for us to work together with another SENDiass service, but also for young people from BCP to work with other young people from another area, and hopefully come up with some really good animations and information films that will be accessible and can be on both of our websites and be accessible to young people. Really interestingly and hot off the press, Art Brokerage already work with an organisation in BCP who have done quite a lot of work with schools, I believe. So what we propose to do is look at that organisation and one from BAME, and then ask the young people to interview those organisations and choose which one they would like to work with. So we want young people to be involved in the co-production from the earliest stages, really. And this kind of project came about because I think there'd been some consultation with young people through the EP service, I think a couple of years ago, where young people had really expressed an interest in animated films being produced. So that's where that kind of came from. So yeah, really positive. Alongside the joint project, we've also agreed some development tasks for our service alone, which focus on our core offer to children and young people. So we plan to, again, work in partnership with a group of young people to develop our website, which could include redesigning an entirely new site if that's what young people want, and ensuring there is a menu of resources that are accessible and developed in partnership with young people. So just to give you a quick overview of our development plan, if this opens. Oh, wonders of modern technology. I may have spoken too soon. Fab. Okay, so as I said, there are a number of, can you see that? Does it come up okay?
I think you're just sharing the PowerPoint rather than the other documents.
Okay, so I need to close the PowerPoint.
Yeah, stop sharing and then
stop sharing and bear with.
And just while I'm speaking, just to let you know, it's 5 to 12.
Fab. I'm nearly finished. Okay, so as you can see, we carried forward the design for the logo, which was very satisfying to turn that to green. So we have achieved that now. We just need to get the branding on to everything SENDiass related, and AIM, as Jill said, is working on producing a digital copy for us. There we go. There's the data around increase in direct work, 43% increase in direct work with young people compared with 2019-2020 autumn and spring terms. So that's really positive. We're still working on the consultation questions we want to be asking young people to gather their views on how accessible we are and how they've been supported, and Jill's working on that with young people currently. The other areas are working on signposts. Again, that's to do with our marketing, and that actually doesn't come from ISP. That's an internal kind of KPI that we want to ensure that we're reaching as many groups as we possibly can. We're just in the process of agreeing a protocol between ourselves and Bain's then partnership service. Kim, I think I emailed you previously just to say, could we run it by you once we've pulled it together, just to make sure you're happy with it from a commissioning perspective, if that's okay. Bain's is just pulling it together. We contributed jointly to it, and they're just pulling it together on behalf of both services. Yep. So I'll pop that through to you once we've got it.
Thank you.
And Jill is currently working on identifying a group of young people that want to work on this. What we're proposing to do is have a larger group of young people and then have 3 or 4 young people from both areas that will come together as kind of a delivery group, sharing the views of that wider group, and ensuring that we do what young people need us to be doing.
And is Jill engaging with our children in care officers that work, participation officers, for that cohort that you're trying to?
I haven't at the moment. I know I've spoken to Lucy. Is it Lucy? Lisa before?
Lisa.
Yeah. But we can go back to her. To be quite honest, we've had 3 things sort of happening with the logo.
I know they did get overloaded, don't they?
And with the SENDs and with the casework and the Southwest, and really we've sort of getting those out of the way, and then we can move forward, to be quite honest. Yeah, but yes, I can go back to her because I did previously contact her, I think last summer. So yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
And as you can see there, the KPI that we've got as part of our contract, and that's where these outcomes come from. We really want young people to be involved in the planning, to taking part in the films, to the design, the narration, the voiceover, so they've got real ownership, that it is their animations that they're creating on subjects that they want them to be about. That's the driver really that we want to ensure happens. And in terms of, we want to identify an organisation, but again, we want young people, as I said earlier, to be fully involved in that, in selecting who they want to work with. And by the end of the contract, which is March 2022, that we'll have co-produced up to 3 short films with clear involvement of children and young people. given the funding, the budget, the increased budget that we've got, because obviously these KPIs were written before we'd secured the funding, we might be able to have more than 3, but I think 3 is a really good starting place. If we end up with more, so much the better. And then in terms of our work as an individual service, we want to work with a group of young people to ascertain their views on the type and format of digital information advice they would find useful. We want to co-produce those resources with them, and by March 22 to have increased by 50% the range of online resources information that young people have co-produced. And we want to measure feedback or measure access on the website and ensure that we track the access of young people to make sure it is doing what it needs to be doing and is meeting the needs of young people locally. Okay, so if I stop sharing that, just go back to my PowerPoint. I think that was the last slide. Okay, any questions? Stunned silence.
Apologies, I was on mute. So Louise and Alexandra have both said thank you, but they've had to leave.
Okay.
Leslie passed on her congratulations on being mentioned, as you said earlier, with the, forgotten what you said, the exemplar. And also she has said great work going on, and are we going to be part of the toolbox workshops that Anthony and Vicky are organising so that all in children's services are aware of this arm's length service?
That's a really good point. No, we're not, and perhaps we should be, as you suggested. So we will explore that further. I think it would be, yeah, because you're right. The toolbox is currently looking at SEND services across the local authority, and no, we're not part of it. So thank you, Leslie, for raising that. We'll explore that and make sure, because I think you're right, that's a really good opportunity to kind of make sure that everybody is aware as they possibly can be. Okay, so we've got 14 minutes until the proposed end of the meeting, and we're on to updates from steering group partners. So I don't know if anybody would like to give an update from their service perspective.
Shall I? Can I jump in?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you, Leslie.
It's lovely to hear everything going on. It's quite inspirational, actually. Lots of things happening, aren't there, for families and children and young people. From the early years perspective, just something to update you all on is that we've been working with the early years SEND partnership over the last few months to develop a SEND inclusion. I don't like to name it like that, but it's a transition strategy and a charter for the early years. And of course, you've been involved, and Kirsty's been with us on the journey, and so have our Parent Carers Together forum. So we now have a charter for the early years transition process, if you like, the vision. There's a strategy behind it, and today we're working on some of the documentation which will support providers, particularly in that transition, which we'll be sharing with all our partners. So that's just an update from us around a piece of really good inclusive work that we've done right across BCP. I'm happy to share if needed, but otherwise you'll see it on the Family Information Directory as soon as we've had that final approval and it can go live.
I'm happy to give some feedback from the CCG point of view. I think most importantly for everybody in this room is that the funding is still with our finance peoples, but they're just tweaking the documents. It's pretty much ready to go, so we're hoping that that should come through in the next month or two. We've got the all-age autism review, which is going to affect a lot of the youngsters and families that you work with. That's in its kind of developmental
service design, and
yeah, it's they call it design stage. Is that with that? So that's in the design stage. Obviously, speech and language is being reviewed, and that has got an end date for this year as well. So again, that might have an impact on what you're going to see out there. and our SEND's Tier 2 training is very nearly finished. So that's with our IT people. That's had a bit of a delay on it. It's a lot of the IT team were redeployed to work with COVID and vaccinations. So that has had a bit of a delay, but again, that is very, very nearly ready. And that includes a lot in there about the graduate response, about SENDiass, and about why and when you might or might not need an EHCP. So that will be really useful in helping professionals working in partnership with you to understand what their roles are. I suppose part of the press, and it's been growing over the last couple of months, there is a growing concern that clinicians, particularly paediatricians and CAMs, are recommending educational placements or recommending that people go for an EHCP without really understanding the graduating response.
Oh, yeah.
It's not good, and I'm looking at addressing
supportive.
Because we've got a letter from a consultant that says you should have an EHCP. It's going to be raising people's expectations, which was going to make everybody's job harder. And that is a priority for me. That's it for me.
So shall I give an update from BCP SEND? So we've increased our team. We now have a designated officer that will be working with children in care, and they will be the interface between SEN and the children in care team, and give a lot more targeted support to children that not only that are children in care in borough, but out of borough as well. We have a designated annual review team. We had a backlog of annual reviews, and now we've recruited 4 officers to, decrease that backlog of annual reviews. And we also have a designated, dedicated assessment team as well in place. We're going to have an officer that works specifically with children not in employment, education and training, and they will hold that caseload so that we can address the issues that we have there. And the interface with children's social care. We also, the personal budget policy is now available online, and we are working on the pathway for that and improving how we deliver personal budgets, how we inform parents about personal budgets, and we're looking at putting online a personal budget friendly leaflet for both parents and young people. So they're the bits of work that we've got and we're focusing on at the moment within the team. We've obviously understood our pressure points. Review has been completed, and these are the areas where we've identified we need designated support, and we've restructured to support those needs. So we are listening to SENDiass, and we are listening to our parents, carers and young people. So thank you, and thank you for those presentations today. Good partnership.
Thank you, Jackie. Victoria's got a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the NEAT aspect really, because sometimes we've come across young people who have kind of dropped off the cliff, as it were, who have an EHCP, and maybe it's in between annual review or it's following post 16 and they've stopped attending, and for whatever reason the provider hasn't shared that with the SEND team. So if Jill picks up a young person where they're not in employment education trade, they've got an EHCP already, would they come directly to the NEAT? Or would they go to the case officer? I just in terms of the logistics of making the SEND team aware really, and getting that ball rolling.
Yeah, I think in the first instance they would go to the case officer.
Okay.
But then they would be supported, by the NEAT officer.
Okay.
Because obviously they're quite complex cases, so it'd be one officer, and supporting that number of needs, they'll need to have that. Yeah, they'll need to have that relationship.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
In terms of what the college is doing with that as well, it's really in early stages, so I'm not in a position to give a real detailed update, but there is a project that is beginning in collaboration with the college, a couple of other agencies and the local authority around really trying to reduce that number of NEAT young people, and working particularly with those young people who want to be in employment but aren't yet ready to do an apprenticeship, so almost like a pre-apprenticeship programme, and I would love to give you more details, but as I say, it's really super early in the process, but it's extremely positive in terms of collaborative working and the fact that the right people are around the table having those conversations. So I think the college will lead that. We will obviously incorporate other partners in how we deliver the different aspects, and it will be extremely bespoke, because we're not talking about young people who are ready to come to college and do a study programme. The reason they are NEET is because they're not able to access that. So I think there's lots of exciting developments that are going to be coming in the next 12 months, but it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, in terms of getting all of the partners in the right place at the right time.
Lewis, Jill has a question.
So will that be something like a traineeship or supported internship, or neither?
No, it won't be a traineeship and it won't be a supported internship, because they are both study programmes. This is really sort of treading new ground here, because this is young people who are not able to walk through the door of college, enrol, go to a classroom, have a timetabled session in the same way as their peers. So these really are those hard to reach young people that we recognise. The college provision isn't something that they're able to, the current provision isn't something that they're able to access. So very new ground, but there'll be updates, I'm sure, coming.
But that won't be starting until next September, not this September, presumably next September, or
well, it won't even be a September start, Jill. But this is what I'm talking about, is not exactly that reason, that these are not young people that are ready in September and say this is what I want to do. So it's likely to be a much more organic and kind of a roll on roll off provision is the vision. How that works, you can imagine the logistics are particularly interesting. So it will be a watch this space, but just so everyone knows, that is a big part of our overall inclusion strategy as a college, and being the lead partner for post 16 in the area. That's what we're trying to work on together. So it won't just be us, but I believe we will be leading it.
Okay, that's perfect. No, because there's lots of there has been stuff through the years, hasn't there? But funding comes and funding goes, so it's good if you've got funding to be able.
There's no funding. We're just trying to find a more creative way of solving the problems. I wish there was, but no.
I was just gonna. Sorry, I was going to say when I worked at Number 18, there was lots of different programs, but they were very short term. Which was again all down to funding, but that's great. Just keep us posted, thanks.
Oh, will do.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
I could say a few words about the EPF and other things. Nobody else wants to jump in. So I think you've already picked up on the recent high numbers of EHCP needs assessment requests currently. So there are a few capacity challenges within the service, but we are doing our best to balance the competing priorities that we have. And we are hopefully going to be successfully recruiting a couple of additional EPs in the near future. But it's very hard to recruit EPs at the moment. They're hard to come by. And we will be losing one of our senior EPs who will be retiring in July. So Cheshire will be retiring in July, and another EP will be returning to South Africa. So again, challenging times. One of the areas of concern that the team has recently identified has been around emotionally based school refusal. So we'll be exploring that area, starting to try to pull something together for a sort of LA response to that at this week's SEND forum on Thursday. So that's something to get involved with. If you're going to come to the forum, you'll be involved directly through that mechanism. Also, as an LA, we've worked with Nason and Whole School SEND to develop a transition framework for Key Stage 2 to 3. It is a working document, but I could share that with you in terms of where it is. Schools have had the current version, and it was actually developed with schools, a group of schools, and a couple of LA partners worked on that document and put it together in its current form. Like I said, there's a couple of bits missing, but it can be used at the moment. I'm also leading in the development of a BCP inclusion quality mark to explore the development of, to continue our inclusion journey with settings and within the LA. So the group has approximately 13 schools who've committed to help move this forward. And Lois actually will be joining us for the next meeting, hopefully. And we also have some support from Leslie from the early years perspective We also have LA early help managers, educational psychology, and Nikki Jacks actually is going to be one of the co-chairs. So that's really good. So we've got 3 co-chairs, one primary person, one secondary, and Nikki from PCT. So within that, what we hope to be doing is exploring, if we can explore sort of clear exclusion statements. So we've begun some work back in March to have a think about what inclusion meant to parent carers, SENCos, etc. But we're building on that work, and hopefully I'll put something out to help gather some further thoughts on that in the near future. We're using the Portsmouth Inclusive Education Quality Mark as a template because it's quite good. So we're building on that by looking at resources to support to enable those to be achieved, and kind of thinking more broadly than the tool itself. So it's helpful to have something that's there that we can build upon to support BCP work. And we hope that it will, highlight and share, celebrate good practice. As I said, help develop additional resources, work on competencies and practice across the whole BCP area. With these few schools as a starting point, and introduce a quality mechanism for inclusion as we move forward. So that's some exciting work. Can SENDiass be involved? Yes. So I think I already touched upon this in a different meeting with Kirsty. So yeah, I'll make sure I involve you in the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Just making sure there's a balance between schools and LA. But of course, yeah. So that's I think that's all I've got to say. Unless anybody's got any questions on any of them.
Thanks, Vanessa. Any other updates? Nikki, do you want to give an update from PCT perspective?
Yeah, I can do. Apologies for joining late. I was told it was Wednesday. So sorry. So first of all, Parent Carers Together are very excited about our partnership with SENDiass to fund a coordinator to lead volunteer SEND parent champions in BCP schools. And we've actually got our first official meeting later today with the successful applicant to plan her starting her work and her induction. So I apologise if I missed at the beginning of the meeting where that was all announced, but yes, so we're very excited. I don't know if the name of the person's been released yet.
Yeah, no, I have.
Okay, cool. And PCT have also worked very closely with SENDiass to work with BCP officers in updating information on the local offer with regard to the EHCP process for requesting a needs assessment, because unfortunately some of the information that was actually being shared with parents on that page was actually legally incorrect. So we have worked with SENDiass and we've helped to update that information and ensure that the correct information is shared with parents as part of that process. So we're very grateful that the LA has accepted those comments and revised things so that it's all correct. Louise, my co-chair, and I have been going out and about now that restrictions have slowly decreased. We've been going out and meeting local parent carer groups, and also we've got a stand organised for the open evening at the college on the 24th. So hopefully we'll meet some young adults as well, and signpost to other parents and carers that are present that are maybe with their young people and can explain what we do as a forum. We're very aware as a forum as well of the massive impact that SENDiass has on the local support for parents and carers, and the high regard with which our parent carers told SENDiass. We would like to be put on record that from feedback from our parents and carers that they are really impressed with the knowledge, the training,
the quality of advice that is given to parents and carers, and really appreciate the fact that we do have an amazing SENDiass service in BCP. So I just wanted to feed that back and say thank you on behalf of all the parents and carers. We do have a relaxed session which parents and carers are kind of leading on. We've invited them to on the 1st of July. This came about from a meeting with Duet from CAMS, and whereby we've put out a call for everybody who would like to be involved to come and join parents and carers as we look forward to working on ideas and suggestions about supporting parents and carers and young people with their mental health. Following on from COVID, we've accepted and noticed that it's been a massive impact locally, as I'm sure we're all aware. So we're trying to be proactive as a forum and to offer parents and carers and young people what they actually need and what they actually want. But we need help from you guys to do that. So I will share as part of the minutes going out the information. It's going to be on Zoom 10 till 12 on the 1st of July. And we're looking for representatives from across different departments and organisations to come and join us, so we can brainstorm some suggestions to do some online sessions with parents and carers to impart information, perhaps webinars, training, you name it. We want to suggest it and try it to give parents and carers what they need to support their mental health and their children's. And potentially that also links in with what Vanessa was explaining as well, about the anxiety and our parents and carers are feeling about. There's lots of children that are struggling with attending school due to barriers linked with anxiety and stress at the moment and their mental health. We're very much involved in the inclusion work led by Vanessa. Thank you for inviting us to that, Vanessa. And we're also involved in, I don't know if other people have heard, we've both forums, so Dorset Parent Carer Council and Parent Carers Together have jointly requested that a local agreement for pathological demand avoidance is agreed by the LA, the CCG. Going forward, parents and carers have requested this because they obviously there is no official diagnosis, and there is quite a high number, a high cohort of young people, children in our local area with PDA. And the idea behind this is to basically for everyone to come together and agree that there should be a local offer of support, advice, information and training, so that those young people feel supported going forwards. And also information shared with schools and other professionals, so that everybody's working from the same page. Other things that we're involved with, just to summarise, so we're very heavily involved in preparing for adulthood work. We're still working with the LA and the CCG on inputting to the newsletter that goes out from the Family Information Service. And we're also involved with things like the wheelchair service review, the speech and language review, and the Pan Dorset All Age Autism review. So just a snapshot of some of the things that we're doing. And one other thing that we're quite heavily involved with, which is actually we seem to be gathering more and more parents and carers as it goes along, which is really positive. We're working with Louise Childs, and it's regarding the local offer, the social care local offer sections, and we are trying to ensure that we're covering all the things that parents and carers have been feeding back, where they don't necessarily meet the criteria to actually access social care support or a social worker, but there is still need. They still have their children, young people still have need for support or signposting. So we're trying to make sure that that's a really quality offer that's on the local offer, and lots of information and the different areas being covered. So, for example, one of the things that was raised was that meeting children's needs where they have sensory needs. isn't always kind of covered. So one of the aspects is that the LAOT is working with us to help develop that part of the local offer to provide more information and signposting, and actually things like how you could make a sensory room and things like that. So there's lots of little pieces and things. We're all doing our best to try and cover everything and all the meetings. We have recruited some new reps, which is brilliant. We do have new reps, and we also have a new person on our steering committee, which we're really pleased about as well. So not bad during sort of COVID times where everything's been very difficult for everybody. But again, we're doing our best, and we are very grateful for all the things that we've been invited to and enabling us as parents and carers to have our voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Vanessa's got her hand up.
Yeah, it was just in response to something Nikki said that prompted my recollection of the fact that we are recruiting should be recruiting soon to a post an occupational therapy team, 2 OTs, an assistant, to try to work around some of the sensory areas that we have gaps for. They can also and will also feed into the statutory process where OT is part of that. So there are, as I said, only 2 people initially, but we'll monitor that and see how that team works, whether the capacity is sufficient for what we need. But yeah, that should be online hopefully around September time.
Great, that sounds really positive, Vanessa. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Nikki, for a really rounded overview of all the work that PCT is involved in. And I think people forget that you're all volunteers at the end of the day as well, and your parent carers. So I think, you know, it's absolutely brilliant, everything that you're involved in and influencing and having a say in. It's really good.
And we couldn't do it without you.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else want to give an update, or I will go on, Kim?
Yeah, you can see me about.
Yeah, I was.
It was just literally hot off the press. We're just about to sign up to an agreement with Autism Wessex to provide a pilot for our post-19 cohort, so 19 to 25. So those that are transitioning from specialist provision, school provision, to give them those life skills. And that we're just in the throes of setting that pilot up to start in September, which will be for an initial 8 young people. But hopefully we're looking to commission more placements beyond that. But obviously, as it's a pilot, we've got to understand that it's delivering and meeting the needs of that cohort and those individuals and their families as well, getting the feedback from them. So that's something to watch this space.
Great, sounds really positive as well. Good stuff. Okay,
You're frozen.
Well, Victoria sounded like she was possibly drawing the meeting to a close. It's 12:27. I know obviously we were planning for 12:15 rather than 12:30, but oh, is she back? No, she's just blinking. Okay, did anybody else have any other business they wanted to say? Anything else they wanted to add? Nope, I've seen lots of shaking heads.
Nope. Really helpful to see everybody though.
Yes, it's been really nice to see everybody and hear all the work that everybody's been doing. So thank you for coming along and obviously providing the input that you have. But yeah, if nobody else says anything else, I'll say thank you, and well, we'll see you next time, and we'll obviously send all the minutes etc. out shortly.
Great, thank you.
Everyone.
Bye everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks. See you later. Bye.